Will Jaime end up killing Cersei? There's lots of evidence to suggest he might, but has he really got it in him? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek. Particularly if you're a first-time viewer, please do consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. The bond between Jaime and Cersei is one of the strongest in the entirety of Game of Thrones. As Cersei says, we are more than brother and sister. We came into this world together. We belong together. We are one person in two bodies. But the relationship is growing strained, in the books even more than in the shows, and it doesn't take an expert to see the rift between them growing deeper over time. This has led some people to speculate that Jaime might end up killing Cersei. But is that really likely? Let's take a look. The starting point for many theories is the Valonqar prophecy. This is a prophecy that doesn't appear in the show. Indeed, it is specifically omitted from the show, but haunts Cersei's thoughts in the books. The prophecy is given by Maggie the Frog to Cersei when she was a lot younger. We see this scene at the start of season 5, almost word for word from the books. Cersei gets 3 questions about her future. Will she marry the prince, she asks, thinking of Rhaegar. Maggie tells her that she'll never marry the prince, but that she will marry the king. This, of course, did come true. The potential match with Rhaegar didn't happen, but Cersei did end up marrying King Robert Baratheon. Cersei then seeks clarification that she will become queen, and Maggie confirms that she will, until there comes another, younger and more beautiful, to cast her down and take all that she holds dear. The first half of this obviously came true, and the second half, well, we shall have to wait and see, although there are certainly a couple of obvious candidates to be the younger, more beautiful queen. And this is the bit of the prophecy that the show focuses on. We see Cersei become paranoid about Margaery Tyrell taking her place, stealing Tommen's affections from her as she saw it. And this ultimately led to her taking the most drastic of options to eliminate Margaery, as well as obviously many others. Cersei's third question is whether she and the king will have children. The king will have many, and she will have 3, says Maggie. Gold will be their crowns, and gold their shrouds. Again, this came true. Robert had many bastard children, and all 3 of her children died before her, 2 as king, 1 as a princess. And this is where the show's prophecy ends. But in the books, Maggie goes on. And when your tears have drowned you, she says, the Valonqar shall wrap his hands about your pale white throat and choke the life from you. In the books, Cersei becomes convinced that the Valonqar is Tyrion, constantly imagining him sneaking back into King's Landing to kill her. It's easy to understand why she might think that. Maggie the Frog was shown to be right on most of the rest of the prophecy, including predicting the death later that day of Melara, Cersei's companion for the visit. Furthermore, Valonqar is High Valyrian for little brother. Tyrion is her little brother in both age and stature. He's shown that he is capable of killing close family members, and that strangulation is not beyond him. He also now has a clear motive for killing Cersei. Revenge for her trying to have him killed. But this seems a little too obvious, and not really Tyrion's style. Sure, he may have killed Shae and Tywin, but in the books he is racked with guilt over that. More importantly, as is often the case with George R.R. Martin, there is more than a little uncertainty about the interpretation of the words of the prophecy. The word Valonqar is clearly interpreted by Cersei as referring to her little brother, and therefore Tyrion. But she actually has 2 little brothers. Jaime was born a few minutes after her. And in the original High Valyrian there is no possessive clause. It means a little brother, not your little brother. So the Valonqar might just as easily refer to any one of the other little brothers in the show, Bran, say, or Stannis, in the books at least, where he's alive and well and following a different storyline. And if we're sticking to the exact words of the prophecy, it requires the Valonqar to wrap his hands around Cersei's neck. Hands plural, which seems to rule Jaime out of the question. But if the prophecy is far from clear, there are other reasons to believe that Jaime might end up killing Cersei. I think we've already seen his feelings for her change with this look, as he realises the destruction that she is capable of. But the real turning point in the books is when he is confronted with the idea that Cersei cheated on him. As far as we can tell, this revelation hasn't happened yet on the show. He missed the trial, Lancel's confession, and so on, and now he is back in King's Landing. There are precious few people who would be willing to risk their own neck to tell him the truth. But there is one person who definitely knows the truth, has absolutely nothing to prove, and carries with her a burning desire to cause pain and hurt to Cersei Lannister, Olenna Tyrell. I've set out in another video how and why the Queen of Thorns might end up telling Jaime that Cersei cheated on him, but I think there's a very real chance that he will find out during Season 7. And bubbling under the surface, there are other reasons for the strains in Jaime's relationship with Cersei. First, there's his growing bond with Brienne. It may be unspoken, but that doesn't undermine its importance. It has taught Jaime that there is someone else in the world who values him and cares about him. He is no longer dependent on Cersei for all his emotional well-being. Secondly, there are the deaths of their children. As with all parents, this was a strong bond keeping them together, and when that shared bond was broken, the impact will have been felt by both of them. For Cersei, the loss of her children has seen her descend into an increasingly cruel, paranoid and power-hungry state of mind. The impact on Jaime has been perhaps the opposite, but it's hard to see him understanding Tommen's suicide as anything other than a direct result of Cersei's actions. But most importantly, we must consider Jaime's overall character arc. He starts out as completely obsessed by Cersei, to the extent that he would attempt to kill an innocent child when she tells him to. This isn't to say that he was without morals. He knew what he did was wrong. He even comments on it during the act. "The things I do for love," he says. It's just that his infatuation with Cersei is so great that it overwhelms every other consideration. Jaime's journey is one of a growing acceptance of his role as a moral human being and the obligations that brings. As a young man, he killed King Aerys to save the lives of thousands of innocents. But far from being recognized as a great protector of the poor and vulnerable, Jaime was vilified, called Oathbreaker and Kingslayer. He buried the truth deep inside, internalizing the idea that good deeds are not recognized. That whatever he does with his life, people will still treat him as a man with no honor. But with Brienne, that hard shell he has built around him has started to crack. He tells her the untold story of what happened with the Mad King, and she understands. She sees him for who he really is, and he repays that by saving her life. He didn't need to. This was him for the first time in maybe years, doing something simply because it was the right thing to do. I wonder whether, when confronted with the threat of the White Walkers, he will choose to do the moral thing again, to abandon family ties and power politics and head north to face the greater threat to humanity. Over 6 seasons, we have seen Jaime's love for Cersei cool. He now sees her for who she is, not just trying to defend her and be with her because. This shift in his affections hasn't yet impacted on his actions, but there is no doubt that it will eventually. Their relationship is on course for a breaking point, as he confronts her with the reality of what she has done and who she has become. But what could cause this breaking point? And even if it is enough to drive Jaime away from Cersei, what could possibly be enough to make him kill the woman whose life he has built his own life around? We've already picked out one reason. Jaime learning about Cersei's relationship with Lancel. And this could be compounded by a new love or marriage potential in Cersei's life. In all likelihood, Euron Greyjoy will turn his marriage attentions away from Daenerys and towards Cersei once he has hunted down Yara and Theon. At the very least, he will suggest an alliance against their common enemies, and from the little we know about him, he may want more. It's one thing for Jaime to forgive a past indiscretion in Cersei's life. It would be quite another to expect him to stand by and watch Cersei give herself to Euron, particularly if it happened at a time when he saw and wanted to respond to a threat from the White Walkers for the betterment of all humanity, and she just saw an opportunity to ruin her opponents. But still, I don't think even that would be enough to drive him to murder. Abandoning her, yes, but killing the woman he had loved for all his life? No, that would take something even more heart-wrenching. And looking back into Jaime's past, we see that there is only one time when he set aside all love, duty and honour, regardless of the personal cost to him. There is an inescapable symmetry between what happened when Jaime killed the Mad King and what is happening with Cersei. For days, the Mad King had been shouting, "Burn them all." He had set wildfire under the city and was giving his instructions to set it alight. This was what drove Jaime to kill him, the man he had sworn the most sacred vow to defend with his life, to protect innocent civilians. The symmetry with Cersei is clear. Jaime has vowed to her that he would always be there to protect her. She placed wildfire under the city like the Mad King did, and Jaime wasn't there to stop her from burning them all. But what if he is next time? What if he is by Cersei's side when Daenerys' armies finally surround King's Landing? What if she decides to use the rest of the wildfire to destroy everything she can, going down in an inferno? We have already seen back in Season 2 that she was willing to commit suicide rather than face the prospect of Stannis removing her family from the Iron Throne. How much further would she be willing to go now? And what would Jaime do then? I think we already know the answers to this. He would kill her, even if it left him a broken shell of a man afterwards. Will it happen? It may. And it would be perhaps the most logical ending to Jaime's story. Tragedy, but heroic tragedy. He would be Oathbreaker once more, Queenslayer as well as Kingslayer, judged and found wanting by all he meets, and saviour once more of thousands of innocent lives. What about you? Do you think Jaime will end up killing Cersei? Do you think he's even capable of it if the moment arises? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you want to see more like this one, please click on the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel in other ways, please check out my Patreon page. Thanks again. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.